Now we're going to be opening up for some questions. I should note that our ministers of state are here. They're in the room too. And I see Minister Mackenzie, Minister Morgan. I'm trying to go around. There are a lot of people in the room. I'm just acknowledging all of you. And we have cabinet. So let's go quickly to the questions. Can we have everybody just do one question, please? All right. Mike.
Dion Jacksmiller, TVJ. The changes that were announced to ODPIM seem designed to allow ODPIM to do exactly what it was set up to do, which is lead effectively from the front. But what we've seen over the years is an organization that seems to have been weakened, no permanent head appointed for an extended period of time, and ODPIM publicly sidelined during periods of disaster. So aren't the changes, even taking into account the excellent capabilities of the JDF, haven't these changes been made necessary because the office has been so weakened?
Okay, PM is going to answer. I was going to answer too.
You know, ODPIM over many years developed a sterling reputation for disaster preparedness and emergency management, and several of the heads of ODPIM have gone on to play leading roles in the Caribbean. There is no denying that over time, that capability and prominence was not as it was in previous times. There are several factors that contribute to that. Would be the level at which the executive leadership was remunerated. In other words, you know, for a job such as what is the task of ODPIM, the salaries did not keep pace. Because just from a competitive point of view, if you want the best people, and the best people are being competed for with other entities all over the place, so Jamaicans who have the capabilities are being pulled all over. And so even now as we speak, ODPIM is still in this process of the compensation review. And that, in a sense, is probably the main issue. We have had several disasters before. So if you were to say, how would you judge ODPIM in preparation, in standing up the preparation for disasters? I think you would say that the preparation for disasters went well. So even with not having necessarily the strongest executive leadership, we were still able to mount a credible preparation. During COVID, which was a kind of different disaster than what ODPIM would have been used to, ODPIM did not necessarily feature so much in the preparations, but they did come in and work very well in the emergency management, and not much credit has been given to ODPIM in ensuring that our BPO sector and some other business and commercial operations were able to operate. They set standards, they went in and inspected, they gave advice, they gave directions as to how businesses should be structured. That is not as forward-facing and recognized, but they did an extremely good job during that period of time. Granted, in COVID, it would have been the Ministry of Health that would have taken over most, for good reason, of the emergency management. In the other storms that we have had, the impact clearly is of no magnitude like this. The last one that we had, which was Beryl, exposed some weaknesses. And the government, therefore, took the actions of, one, doing a review. And persons were wondering, why am I doing a review? Everything you go do review. Some comments that I have seen. Yes, very important, because as your question would say, you know, does ODPIM have the capability to respond to a disaster like this? And I saw some weaknesses. I saw some gaps. I saw some spaces that need to be filled. But I am not the technical expert. So I asked someone who is an expert in this field, former Chief of Defense Staff, now Ambassador, to lead a team to review not just ODPEM, but the entire emergency response management of the government. And that report was very useful to us in what we need to do to make ODPEM the emergency management entity that can respond to a Category 5. ODPEM has never responded to a Category 5 disaster. And that's an important point to make. This is not a normal hurricane. So you can't judge the response of the government by virtue of what it has done in the past. This is a new level of disaster. And we need to empower, structure, support, provide the resources, and encourage and acknowledge the efforts of the persons who are now on the front line of Jamaica's response to the disaster. Thank you for the question.
All right, we have, I think it's coming down the line here. Oh, okay, all righty, on this side.
Thank you. Karen Madden, the Jamaica Gleaner. I do not see the Minister of National Security. Perhaps you have been briefed, or perhaps the Prime Minister. My question has to do with security in the shelters. We are getting reports that women have been sexually assaulted. I don't know if you have confirmed those reports, and if so, the steps you are taking to prevent this from happening.
All right, PM?
Thank you, Ms. Madden, for that question. No report has come to me. Yeah, we haven't received, I say Minister Mackenzie, who has some oversight of the shelters. We haven't gotten that report. I thank you for bringing it to our attention. If such a thing has actually happened, we will investigate. I'll ask you to give Minister Mackenzie the details that you have so we can investigate.
I don't know that it has, Prime Minister.
Oh, okay.
But we have received reports.
Yes, and PM.
So you would have received a report that the number of shelters are reducing daily. Those that exist, so that you have raised it, we're going to Cabinet in a few minutes. I will raise it in the Cabinet with Minister Chang, and we will ensure that there is adequate coverage for them. I just make this appeal to every Jamaican. Yes, it's a difficult time. Yes, there is disaster all around. But now is not the time to take advantage of persons weaker than yourself. Now is the time to help and support and to show that you are a real man. Not by holding up people at gunpoint and taking away the relief that they are bringing. Try helping them through the obstacles to deliver the relief. That is how you're going to get respect today. There is no respect that you're going to get from brandishing your gun. And let it be clear. Let up on their operations.
Thank you. And PM, if I can just note, that issue was brought to my attention, and there was a specific shelter that was raised, and I had shared it with the Commissioner of Police for them to investigate. All right, we're on this side now.
Thank you so much. Kalisha Williams, Television Jamaica. This question is for Mr. Vaz. As co-chair of the Recovery Committee, is there a schedule for the distribution of the aid that can be published? I know the Prime Minister spoke to the systematic changes that will take place now in terms of the distribution of aid. TVJ News observed yesterday in Landilo, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Westmoreland, where people were throwing aid in bulk on the ground. Can you say what's the protocol surrounding this? What changes will be made going forward? And in regard to the 27 communities marooned, what's the plan to address that in terms of how soon will these people get aid? How soon will you access the communities? And finally, in regards to school, can I get a status report on the schools, the number of schools damaged, and what's the plan for students doing PEP, CXC? What's the plan for students in those areas who cannot go to school right now, both online or in person? Thank you.
All right, thank you for your four-part one question.
All right, the part that's related to me, I'm going to answer, and then I'm going to beg your indulgence for me to leave. I have to go and prepare for Cabinet. And just to say that at Cabinet today, we're going to be discussing the allocation of expenditures. Minister Tufton is quick off the bat. He has brought a quite hefty bill.
I have mine too.
I hear the Minister of Education under her breath saying she has a submission to make, and to the Minister of Local Government. So I'm going to be scratching my head now to see how we can carve up that budget to give effect to the relief response. So you would have heard me say the dignity of the recipients of aid must be maintained. And in fact, yesterday we had an extensive discussion with ODPEM, and they will bring in the Ministry of Labour and Social Security to establish or re-establish the protocols and standards by which aid and relief should be delivered. I don't think there is anything wrong with the formation of lines, and I'm not saying that these are the protocols. I'm just giving you my general view that there is nothing wrong with the formation of lines. There is nothing wrong in saying one line for elderly, one line for pregnant and lactating mothers or mothers with children, and another line for everyone else. There is nothing wrong with saying strong, able-bodied persons who are in the crowd, please come up and assist. There's nothing wrong with saying, where is the person that is the acknowledged leader of the community or a person who holds some office? Please come up and guide us as to who should get first. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that is the spirit. Rather than saying these are the standards, what I'm getting at is saying every Jamaican should acknowledge this as the spirit in which the relief effort is done. Now, Commander Gale and Chief of Defense Staff Williams Gorman and Minister of Labour and Social Security Pernell Charles, they will come together and reinforce the protocols so that when the aid is being delivered, Jamaica doesn't look like, let me not go any further. We want Jamaica to look good.
We need to. I'll answer. Thank you, PM. I'll answer on the education one, which was around how many schools have been impacted. In the affected parishes, we have a little bit over 450 that have been affected, and that's across the board: infant schools, primary schools, secondary schools, and also tertiary schools. So far, we've seen estimates of 616 institutions having some kind of damage. Sometimes it's just a leak. Sometimes it ranges from a leak to the entire school being destroyed. And so what we're doing, we have our teams out there. We have an initial cost, which is humongous. And so we're going to be trying to confirm that on the ground. The minister team is already out there. The senior team will be out there. Our state minister and our parliamentary secretary will be going out too to get more assessments. So we expect that by next week we'll have a bigger picture, a clearer picture of what is happening with the schools. But almost every school got some amount of damage. All right, did we leave out any? Which one did we leave out?
In terms of the list, a schedule for the distribution of aid that can be published.
All right, Commander Gale is going to answer that one.
More again, also, as it concerns the list, we are tracking a list. I believe you had asked if we'll publish it. So we are publishing that now within a very select group so we can manage how the information is flowing, particularly because the conditions remain significantly dynamic. We have the JDF, the Jamaica, the JCF, we have other groups working towards the areas. We need to establish, for example, landing sites for the helicopters and so on. So the list remains fairly dynamic. As things become more benign, however, we should be able to publish that on a daily basis. But we do have that within the JDF ODPEM system, and we're prioritizing those based on numbers of persons being affected, and also looking at how can we actually physically get to the sites. And so that's how we are structured now. And as I said before, it's an all-of-government approach, so we have persons on the ground, food for the poor, some of our Samaritans, PERS, and etc., which are doing things for us. So we are able to push through. Wherever we can, we will get into.
And the plans for the 27 maroon communities, how soon do you think you can get access to these areas?
So we're out flying now. We do have several urban SAR groups on working with the JDF and the fire brigade. So we are pressing every day to get that number down. As you can understand, the terrain is fairly arduous now. There's some flooding, there are some gaps which are to be bridged. We are pressing through that. I don't want to deliver upon a commitment now, but we should expect at least on a daily basis, we should see 1 or 2 communities going down. What I'll also say is that as the weather conditions come in, so we'd have added 1 more community this morning due to rainfall last night. It became marooned again because of flooding. So it will remain a very dynamic situation. And as it goes along in that manner, you can understand the list of priorities will change. Hence why you want to kind of manage that now in a sort of a stovepipe before we start pushing out. Once it becomes really benign and we have full access, then we can start publishing our drop list. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a note, we do monitor online, and there are individuals who will online say this community hasn't been reached, and that's always fed in. Sometimes it's MPs that are sending a list, but people online are also doing it, and that gets fed to JDF, and they then do checks. So if you know of an area, you can reach out, and we will get to them, and we'll add them to the list. All right.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Mahiri Stewart, Nationwide News. Question to Commander Gale. We've been pretty much a little bit over a week removed from the passage of Hurricane Beryl. Now that you are in this new role as Director General of ODPEM, you spoke to it earlier in terms of things that need to be improved, but are there any specific gaps that you've noticed in this week of response that you think you can improve in your role?
I like the suit.
Mahiri, significantly, as we are in the recovery, we're in the relief phase, and one of the very prominent things is to be able to establish a huge logistics software capability, so we can monitor not only what is in our ODPEM stores. I spoke to the fact that we are establishing a significant logistics outfit that will need an entire new apparatus around it. So that's one of the very first things we're going to achieve, and I believe we should be able to achieve that in a matter of coming days, so we can actually look what is coming, look what is going out, look at resupply timelines, also starting to manage when are we needing to resupply persons we've already supplied. So in the immediate phase, that's one of the things we want to be looking at, whilst we kind of maintain the dignity of our persons on the ground.
A very, very short question to Dr. Tufton. In terms of the Western parishes, is there any update you can give on Hanover?
Yes, so the Noel Holmes Hospital in Hanover is functional. The A&E department was not impacted. The dietary maternity ward and the male and female ward had roof damage. And we had to do a makeshift arrangement for ward space in the passageway. The estimates have been done, and the idea is to address that facility. It's a small hospital compared to the others. The population is less. About half of the health centers in the parish have been damaged, and that assessment is being done. So the team is working. I've been there twice, and they're managing for the time being.
All right. Thank you, Minister. All right, Zara.
Zara Burton, 18 Degrees North. Good morning. I had some questions, but I don't necessarily know if anybody from the environmental sector is here. It has to do with just the decaying of carcasses and speeding that up. I went on Friday, didn't see any jonkers in the air, and wondered, on a serious note, if anything could be done about getting some jonkers in the area to take up some of the carcasses. Also, the number of persons and communities that are rising in terms of water, why those are rising, and how will that impact the rebuilding efforts if we have new water bodies? So just an environmental person would be good to have on the panel. That's just a comment.
Okay.
The questions I have are for the commander of ODPEM. Death toll, then Dayton Campbell in the Parliament raised the issue of how are you counting, and the issue was brought up by the PM of indirect versus direct deaths and that kind of thing. Just wanted to understand, how are you actually counting deaths? That's number one for you. And then two is in terms of the money that's flowing into ODPEM for the accountability watchdogs of us that need to know, for instance, how much came from this country, how much came from that country, was it kind or was it cash? Would we be able to get a running tally of how much money is actually coming into the country in addition to the support jamaica.gov.jm portal? And then three for you also. in terms of the relocation of my grandmother's nurse brought this up yesterday, the relocation of people in those areas where it may be a struggle to either rebuild in their communities or they're in desperate straits right now, evacuating them into shelters in Kingston like the Arena. Is that something that you are exploring, especially even from a learning standpoint? Are you getting people or taking people maybe even into campsites around the country that have dormitories that could relocate them temporarily for like a 6-month period in shelters and maybe even be allowed to plant stuff so that they can generate a livelihood and also boost output like the Prime Minister had said?
All right. Commander?
Fairly long questions, but I think I'll take the last one first. So as we get into the recovery phase, that is something we'll be robustly exploring. I believe there's a subcommittee of council that is directly treating with that. So some of those plans will start to come out very soon, but it's not something that is void of our thought in the impending situation. Could you repeat your first question in summary for me?
Death toll, how are you?
Death toll, how are we treating with it? So by and large, the Ministry of Health and Wellness is plugged in daily to the National Emergency Operations Center. We do have the fire brigade, we do have the JCF. So we are sitting there and determining out of those figures and the reports that come in, actual deaths related to the passage of Hurricane Melissa. Now the official source has become for us the PEC report provided by the JCF. So they do their investigations. Ministry of Health and Wellness is doing the matters concerning pronouncing the number of dead. And then we look at those in partnership, we make a determination. A determination now, as at very early this morning, was 32. There are some matters that have come into us. Those have been looked at, and we'll publish new updates as we get them.
No, but are those considered direct or indirect and direct?
Some investigations, as you understand, will have to take place sometime after. Some will be very hard to determine right now, but the investigations through the JCF, they will treat with those matters. On the back end, I'm very, very sure we'll be able to disaggregate quite properly.
Okay, and I'm not really getting a response to the question about how you're counting, so if there's any way you can get some clarity and come back to us. Or are you counting in terms of direct and indirect? For instance, if somebody goes ahead to try to get aid in a hurricane and they die, are you counting them? I'm just wondering, how are you counting? It's really important, and if we could get a list of the people that have died for accountability purposes as well.
On the matter list, I'll defer to my more senior experts, but I believe we might be keeping that directly here. But we'll come back with some matters as we work through the problems.
Okay, and then the third question?
I believe I answered that one on the first.
The money coming in. Money, how are we
Oh,
going
no,
to
the money. Oh,
that
was the second
Tally,
question.
the running tally of
The running tally.
coming in from various.
All right, so we are keeping a running tally. There's also another subcommittee that will be looking prescriptively at how we'll be managing that for the accountability portion of it. In terms of making the funds public, I'm sure that somewhere down the road, those figures will become public. But there will be a significant management framework around it to be developed.
All right. Just to note, I guarantee you that there is a running tally in the ODPEM. There is a huge spreadsheet of everything that comes in, everything that's been approved. Remember, before any aid shipment comes in, even if it's for an independent entity, they have to share it with ODPEM. So they send the list of items that are coming in, an estimated cost for the items coming in, and all of that is held. On the Support Jamaica site, we do get an update on that each morning. If you want me to give you that, I can give you. I just need to find it. But there is serious accountability there in ODPEM. I think that framework was actually quite robust in its establishment. And so at the appropriate time, I'm sure Command, as he gets more integrated into ODPEM, will be able to give you that running tally. And it's also in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They deal with a lot of the aid that's coming in from bilateral partners, so other countries, and also the multilaterals. That is, they have their own system of accounting for all of that. So all the information is there. And so there will be a time for us to just present everything. This is all that we got from everywhere. I know some ministers over to Cabinet. JPS, you have a question already. So if you have to leave, leave, but let's take the last, okay. His hand was up first. It's been up for a long time.
Morning, everybody. Andre Jebinson, CVM News.
Yes.
Is there a running list of the number of people who are unaccounted for? Because we hear about the deaths, but we do not know if there are people who are missing at this time. Secondly, could you tell us if the country is any closer to drawing down on the $70 million CRIF, or if there are any delays there?
All right, on the CRIF, I'll get back to you on that. But as you know, there would have been a press release that came from CRIF that said it was triggered. And so there are a few, obviously, paperwork to be done. We are hoping that within months we'll be able to draw down on that. But as we start that drawdown process, we'll come to you and let you know how it comes. Does it come in tranches, or does it come all at once? We will let you know.
So to the extent that persons report into the NEOC or the Ministry of Health and Wellness's EOC, there is a running list of those persons who are missing, consequent to reports coming into us. So that does exist. I have to double check.
All right. Okay, yes.
Thank you. Asking, can we be given a list of the communities that are still marooned?
Yeah.
Whether or not food drops are taking place there, and if so, when did those drops start, and how regular are they? And then as well, I heard the announcement in Parliament about the Joint Select Committee. I heard the announcement of the private sector committee, that coordination committee, but I'm still asking, why not an independent oversight committee to monitor implementation and expenditure?
Yeah. All right. So in terms of that question, that's one that the last one, on the governance framework. That is going to be discussed in Cabinet, and we started discussing it last week, and then there was also some indication from PM about putting in accountability structures. There are different ways that we can do it. I mean, we've spoken about the National Partnership Council, we've spoken about a committee of Parliament, we've spoken about many different opportunity today in Cabinet to discuss what does that governance framework look like. And remember, there is the relief phase, which is what we're in now, and then the recovery phase. I think that's the one that's going to really need that kind of overarching body, because we're going to have to be asking some real serious questions about ourselves. Where do we rebuild? What do we rebuild? Given global warming and climate change, is it fit to put back communities where they were? Or do we move them from where they were? What are the new building standards? And just generally accountability over all of the insurance money that's coming in and what we're doing. So that conversation that you're raising is actually one that we're having in Cabinet about what does this governance framework look like. And so you will be hearing more as the Prime Minister and the members of the Cabinet discuss that.
Marooned communities.
Marooned communities. The list, I think Commander Gale had noted that there is some fluidity to that, and that he has given assurance that he will put out that list of the communities and the drops and the food drops
taking place, and if so, when did they start? How early did they start, and how regular are they?
Okay, you can come. I know they're every day. they're very frequent. Yes.
So food drops have started. There is a running list today. I'm trying to bring the list up now, but I believe of the 27 communities, we've been able to reach 22 thus far. So there is a running list, and we're doing food drops. We're trying to regularize the cycle, and surely we should be able to put something out.
Can you tell us when the food drops started, and when can we get a list?
When they started, the moment we started flying, which was the day after the passage of the hurricane. And the list, I won't promise you a time now, but to be expected shortly.
All right, we're going to have to wrap soon. I know there were two questions that I just needed to give responses to. There was the question that had come on sexual assaults at shelters. There was a specific one that had been referenced online. The Commissioner of Police has said that they also got the report. I gave them, but they got it before me, and that they are currently investigating, and they'll get back to us. On the environmental questions about John Cruz and the others, we'll try to ask our environmentalists in terms of what's the best thing to do with animal carcasses and so on. And we'll get an answer.
Just wanted to add one bit of information based on the questions that have been coming. Over 300 hours of flights coordinated between the Jamaica Defense Force and the U.S. military. That equates to over 100 drops over the last 7 days. And that does not include the other 15 helicopter assets that are being used by international charities, charitable organizations. That's just specific to the 6 from the U.S. military and the 6? 6.
They didn't come all at once.
Right. So you'll recall also that the U.S. came in phases. Right? They didn't come all at once. There are 6 here now, but they didn't come all at once. So that's even more to show the efficiency of what's taking place in terms of our over 20,000 packages, and that's just from the government apparatus. Each package for a household is for 7 days. So it's a lot of logistics and planning to make sure that when we drop, that family or that recipient has food for 7 days. The family has food for 7 days. So just wanted to add that to give you an understanding of the magnitude of what is taking place in our beloved Jamaica. Today being the 7th day since the hurricane hit.
All right, we have to close. I'm seeing a message that they were needed in cabinet, but let me have the last 2 questions over here. I see 2 hands. We're gonna just take both, and then we give the last set of answers. Microphone, please. Trying to get the mic up.
Testing. All right. Wait again. All right. So I know there's a little disquiet about changing the leadership at ODPEM at a time like this. Could you expand just a little bit more on the disaster management experience that Commander Gale has? And can you specify what role Mr. Thompson will have during this period, given that he has been acting at the ODPEM for quite a while, and before that he was deputy?
All right. I won't be able to answer all of that, but I can ask the commander to give you his CV. But just noting, I've worked with Mr. Thompson quite a bit as ODPEM head. In terms of when you're communicating, you have to speak to the head of ODPEM a lot. And he has worked hard for the country. And the Prime Minister has noted that last year there was an assessment done of ODPEM and the entire mechanism. It wasn't just ODPEM, of the entire disaster response mechanism. And a report was provided, Cabinet looked at it, and it was clear that we needed to look at ODPEM and look at executive experience. One of the things I know that the Ministry of Labour had done was to, not Labour, the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development had done was to start the process of rescoping the job description for the head of ODPEM, recognizing how important that role is, and also noting that the salary scale had to change, and PM did answer that question. And so what's happening now is that process is still in train, but it was felt that we needed to have greater synergies with the JDF, and having a commander who was already leading in the Emergency Operations Center. Remember I told you, he was there in the center, he was one of the leaders in our Emergency Operations Center, was the best thing to have that synergy now. In terms of Mr. Thompson, he is still a part of the ODPEM team. He is probably a permanent member of staff. I would have to check that and get back to you, but I expect that he would still be there and still serving. There was another question, yes. And that's the last one because we have to wrap.
Thank you so much. Going back to my point about schools, I don't think you answered the second part of the question. In regards to, similar to how we have like field hospitals.
Right, okay, I'll answer that.
Students were supposed to do CXC and PEP. What's the plan to continue learning in those areas?
All right, so we have encouraged schools to open. And I know on Tuesday, there were over 100 schools that had opened, so those who can should open. Obviously, we need to have water at the school, and it needs to be a safe environment. But what we're going to do is to prioritize children doing exams, whether it's external in relation to CXC or CAPE, or if it is PEP exam. So while I was the principals were saying that they are getting schools back. It may take a while to get everybody in, but the priority was for those who are doing PEP and those who are doing CXC and CAPE, CSEC and CAPE. The other consideration for us and what we're starting to look at, as we're looking at temporary shelter for people, we're also looking at temporary school structures, because we may have to use tents. We may have to get makeshift structures that our students can continue to learn in. So we've started that process. And so as the work is happening, and I've already spoken to Keith, he's looking at clear areas where we can put temporary housing, shelter. And I've said to him, while you're doing that, look for spaces that could house a temporary school structure. So we're doing that work now, and the ministry is working hard to figure out the damage, because some we can put tarpaulin on the top and we can get them open. And so we're going to be flexible as best as possible. But really for us, our goal is to get as many schools back. And I have the head of the Independent School Association here. They have been hit too, the independent schools, and we've committed to supporting them, because the entire education system is important to us. And so, yeah, we're going to be flexible, and everybody's going to be at school, but it will not look like school, regular school, when we start back. All right, and so those were all the questions. There was a lot.